Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, good Thursday to you here at the Sports IQ. Glad you're with us here. Larry Smith, producer, Tony, editor Josh. So we'll talk a little NFL coming up here in just a bit. We've got some talk there. Kind of interesting things that happening. We'll get that conversation coming up. We want to talk, though, first NBA and the playoffs ongoing. And a decent conversation here. You know, we all knew that the OKC Thunder would come out ready to play Wednesday night. They were already trailing 1-0 in this series after the double overtime loss. They're at home on Monday night. They knew that going down 0-2 would be an easy way to get bounced or ever getting back to Oklahoma City because San Antonio's a really good team. Well, last night they showed, while they're the defending champs, 30 points from league MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They beat the Spurs 122-113 to even the series at 1. Now, let's take a closer look here at the numbers. The Thunder starters shooting over 50% in game 2. That's a recipe for success at any level of basketball. SGA, you know, he's going to get his. And again, the 30-point shooting. 12 of 24 on the night, but it was the lesser-known players on the Thunder roster who have really showed up big in this series. Isaiah Hartenstein, who only played 12 minutes in game 1, 27 tough minutes in game 2, and helped hold Victor Wembanyama to 21 points and 17 boards. Yes, helped hold him to that. Remember, he had 41 and 24 in double OT on Monday. So, yeah, he held him to, you know, you're a great player when they're celebrating holding you to 21 and 17. Hartenstein himself finished with 10 points, 4 of 8 shooting, 13 boards, including 8 on the offensive end. Alex Caruso, the veteran pest of this team, 17 points for him last night, 3 of 4 from deep, 5 assists as well. No turnovers, and that's key. In 2 games in the series, Caruso, 11 of 18 from deep. That's very impressive. And how about the adding in what Cason Wallace has done as well off the bench? 12 points, 4 of 6 shooting from 3. He was 2 of 5 from 3 in game 1. So now 6 of 11 from the arc in this series. That's Wallace. Those 2 bench players combined 17 of 29 from deep. That's crazy. Crazy numbers. If the Spurs are going to compete in this series, they better find a way to defend the 3-point shots from those 2 much better than they have done so far here in this series. On the other side of the ball, health becoming an issue now for San Antonio, especially in the backcourt. Dylan Harper was an unsung hero in game 1, filling in for the injured De'Aaron Fox. Harper playing 47 minutes, 24 points, 11 boards, and had just 1 turnover as the primary ball handler. Great job there for the rookie. Well, last night, Harper just 25 minutes, 12 points, 3 boards, was a +6 in the plus-minus rating, but when he's on the floor, but leaving the game in the third with a hamstring injury, and he'll require an MRI sometime today. Stephen Castle had the highlights of the night, the dunk over Hartenstein, but he better learn to handle the ball better in games 3 and 4 because he's been a turnover machine in the first 2 games. Castle, who right now is the primary ball handler, if both Fox and Harper can't go in game 2 or game 3, I should say, he's committed 20 turnovers in the first 2 games all by himself. That's just crazy. That's an NBA playoff record through the first 2 games of a series, and it's not a record you want to have. He is -12 when on the floor so far in this series. The Spurs, as a team, they've committed 44 turnovers in 2 games. That number must come down. I want to get to producer Tony's thoughts here on this. And Tony, you were saying one thing that really stuck out for you. Was the way the game is being called early on. This was just not clean. It was not good basketball. Let's just put it that way.
It's not what basketball is supposed to be. Basketball is a beautiful game. It's a moving game. It is a high skill game. It is an acrobatic game. It is an athletic game. It is not supposed to resemble WWE or the NFL. And look, Larry, there's places for Isaiah Hartenstein in this league, for guys like that who are are bigger, taller, stronger, whatever, but you cannot allow them to bend the rules. You cannot allow a Hartenstein to pull and tug on Wemby's arm whenever he wants to. You cannot allow Hartenstein to basically act like he's playing for the 1960s Green Bay Packers and leading Paul Hornung around a sweep when he clears the lane for SGA and, makes it so Wemby can't get there because he's setting a moving screen. Look, to be honest, Isaiah Hartenstein should have fouled out in the first half. Should not have played a second in the second half.
Yeah.
He should have been out of the game because he committed that many fouls that weren't called. I mean, look, the officials have got a tough job to do. I'm not saying that, and I'm not blaming the officials, but somebody has to be watching these things because it takes away from the beauty of what basketball should be to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, and I think it's unfortunate because, look, Wembanyama is one of the greatest players in the game today. I mean, he's at some point he's going to win an MVP honor, or maybe multiple. And he totally dominated in game one. But you can't allow, and we've seen this before. And I remember there was a player in college, Kofi Coburn, the All-American, who just got, in a similar sense, just was getting hammered. Right? They'd put a smaller player on him and just hammer him every time he got the ball. And finally, I remember Illinois coach Brad Underwood asked him, like, "What's the deal?" And the official told him, "Well, we can't call a foul every time."
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Agree. You absolutely can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with if it's a foul, it's a foul. It's not, well, I called that one, so I'm going to have to let him get away with the next three, and then maybe I'll call another one. No, you call it, and they'll stop it. That's how it works.
Tony, you're exactly right. And I think that's the thing. We were talking before, the NBA, WNBA, you've got to come in and find a way to clean that up. It's not basketball, and it's not playoff basketball. And I just think what he did, and if I'm with you, if I'm the Spurs, I'm complaining to the league. I mean, you're taking one of the best players in the world and just beating him up.
Yeah, I mean, I would have had somebody, if I were the head coach of the Spurs, I'd have somebody going through the tape as soon as the game ended. I would have probably had him starting at halftime. And I'd say, pull all of these plays. Every play that you see, a pull, a tug, a yank, a hold, send it to the league because they've got to let these officials know that this can't happen. Look, I've been a high school official. I've never officiated at the highest levels. I understand the game is faster. It's harder to officiate. You don't want to be the center of attention. However, you cannot allow one team. The whole thing of being an official is to adjudicate the rules so that nobody gets an unfair advantage. The Thunder last night got an unfair advantage with Hartenstein's play because it was outside the rule book. It's that simple.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too, now how do you move forward to game 3 in this series? And, how do you, like I said, you have them set the tone early in terms of the officiating and just play it even. And that's what I get disappointed about is that you could see in the overtime periods Monday night, there was more clutching and grabbing of him, trying to slow him down. It wasn't working with Caruso. Right. That happens. Sometimes you let some stuff go, and it's, but just like you said, to start at the beginning. And the thing is, and this, once you've established it, now it's done. And now the entire game, you're never going to get it back. Once you've let it be known, we're going to let this happen.
Yeah. I mean, I've taught officials, I've trained officials. One of the tenets that I always told them was you don't call something in the fourth quarter of a football game you wouldn't call in the first. So if you set the tone early, if you decide this is a hold and you let everybody know this is how we're calling holding tonight on this game, then everybody will adapt to how that is being called. But you don't pick it up in the fourth quarter after you've let them get away with clutching, grabbing, aggravated assault and all that other stuff, for 3 quarters and then try to tighten it up because that's where you get coaches that get angry. That's where you get players that get angry and it leads to bad things. You as an official who at any level needs to set the tone early and say, this is how the game is going to be called tonight. And by not making the calls, you're insinuating that that's how it's going to be called all night. But that you can't do that. That's to me. And again, I'm not picking on the officials for the NBA. They have a very tough job to do with 3 of them out there on the floor and 10 people. I get it. But by not calling it, you've allowed the game to become something that it isn't, or it shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go the other side now in Oklahoma City in terms of the brilliance of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was not a big factor in Game 1, and we talked about that. That was his night, the MVP of the back-to-back MVP awards. That announcement was earlier in the press conference. It just seemed like he never took control. The mark of a champion, the mark of a leader, the mark of an MVP. He did that in Game 2. Put this team on his back, and he was the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting to his spots. He was getting the shots off. He looked good. He looked comfortable. I think maybe the layoff might have had a little bit to do with that first game. He looked rusty. It's kind of tough to get in the flow. I also thought Dylan Harper did a tremendous job. That's why, Larry, this MRI that they're doing is so crucial to the rest of this series.
Yeah.
Whatever that MRI, if they don't have Dylan Harper and they don't have De'Aaron Fox at 100%, this thing's over. The Thunder are going to go to the NBA Finals. There's no doubt about that. They do not have the depth at guard to be able. You were able to overcome the loss of Fox in Game 1 because Harper played so well. If you lose him too, you don't have enough. Look, Stephon Castle is going to be a great player. He's still young. This is only his second season. And ball handling is not his forte. When he is thrust into the point guard role instead of being the 2-guard role, it shows. And 20 turnovers through 2 games, the most in NBA playoff history through 2 games of a series. If that keeps up, it just can't happen. And the whole team is not taking care of the ball well. 56 turnovers by the San Antonio Spurs through 2 games. They are lucky to be 1-1 at this point. If you commit that many turnovers, you're not winning many games in this league at this level of play at this time of year.
Yeah, and you're right. It's one of those that even if you're the Spurs coaches, I mean, you're trying to plan for Game 3 coming up tomorrow night. Like you said, though, if you don't have Fox and you don't have Harper, what's your game plan now to try to stop this backcourt and all the talent that the Thunder has?
Right. I mean, and they've got to find a way, again, they've got to find a way to defend the 3-line better. They have not been good so far, at least when it comes to Kayson Wallace and Alex Caruso. If you've decided that we're going to cover all these other people, and if these guys beat us, they beat us, well, they're beating you. It's 1-1. You got lucky the first game. Caruso had a career game. He wasn't quite as productive in Game 2, but still very productive off the bench. If you can get 17 points and have somebody shoot 75% from deep off your bench, you're going to take that every night and twice in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you've got the league MVP on the front line doing that, that's a guy coming off the bench. You mentioned Wallace as well. You never quite know what he's going to get if you've got Caruso doing that, and then Wallace giving, again, those two combined shooting more than 50% from 3. Like you said, it's one thing to try to defend, SGA, right? And then these guys come off the bench and they're saying, "Hey, guess what? Our reserves, our reserve guards are better than yours," and that's a recipe that's tough. And at the same time, that's where again the officiating has to clean up, because if you have all those things happening, your only shot is a Wembanyama going for 40 a night, and that showed last.
Absolutely. All things being equal, the Thunder are definitely the more talented team. They're the deeper team, but the Spurs have the ability to play with them, as they've shown through the regular season and through Game 1. Look, you don't win 5 of 6 against Oklahoma City by accident. That's why it's incumbent on the officials to make sure the playing, because if we're going to go with a level playing field, the Thunder are still the more talented team. They need to perform at that level. But if you tilt that playing field in the physicality portion to their favor, well, then the Spurs have no chance.
Yeah. And let's face it. So now we go to San Antonio for Game 3 Friday night. Listen, I expect the Spurs, I know you do too, to come out and just shake this off. Like you said, they're going to go in and say, "Listen, that was a weird game. A lot of clutching, holding. These things happened. The turnovers. Got to clean up the ball handling." But they're at home. That's a great arena. It'll be packed. It's a not an old arena. It's about 25 years old, I think. and that's why streams are building a new one, but that's, that's their business. But it's one where it is, I've been there for NBA finals games. It is very, very loud. And just like we saw in Oklahoma City with that home crowd, we'll have the same kind of energy coming up here tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Yeah. The energy is going to be great. They've got to come out, and Wemby has got to establish himself. He's got to, work a little harder, work a little deeper, not let Hartenstein push him out so far. And again, hopefully if Hartenstein can do it legally, go for it. But hopefully he doesn't get allowed to do it illegally, which pretty much what he did in game 2. And the supporting cast is all going to have to step up. If you have no Harper, if you have no Fox, and there's talk that Fox may give it a try, he may give it a go. If he can, great. We'll just have to see, where that goes, as far as these playoffs go. But yeah, there's some other people that are going to have to step up, make some baskets, help with the rebounding, and limit the turnovers. You cannot cough the ball. If they cough it up 20 or more times again in game 3, then they're going to be trailing 2-1 in this series.
All right, so this series now shifting to Game 3 in San Antonio. That's tomorrow night as they goes to 3 and 4 on the road here this weekend. And those games, again, the Western Conference Finals are on NBC. ESPN will have the Eastern Conference Finals, and Game 2 of that is tonight. New York at home against Cleveland, trying to go up 2-0 in the series after that thrilling Game 1 there. Okay, little NHL news on the way. Still talking NFL as well. Much more to come here on the Sports IQ.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back to the Sports IQ here on this Thursday. Hard to believe we're getting already close to the end of May. Memorial Day is right here upon us. Some other conversations as well. The Stanley Cup Playoffs continue right now. Western Conference Finals getting underway in Colorado last night. Much like injuries are shaping the Western Finals in the NBA, it seems injuries will play a factor in this series as well. The Avalanche had to play Game 1 without Cale Maker due to an upper body injury suffered in the last round of the playoffs against the Wild. The Avalanche had to shuffle the lineup, and that led to some communication issues among the blue liners for Colorado. Dylan Coughlin scoring his first playoff goal to get Vegas rolling. Carter Hart made 36 saves, and the Vegas Golden Knights opening the Western Conference Finals by holding off Colorado 4-2. This game, again, being played in Denver. Colorado tried some different combinations without Maker and led to some confusion. Again, Coughlin sneaking into the middle on the ice and lining a shot right through the pads of Wedgwood to break a scoreless game in the second period. Avalanche coach Jared Bednar said of not having Maker, there's definitely a trickle-down effect to that, but he's not playing, and we have to find a way. This is Colorado's first home loss of the playoffs and gives the Knights now home ice advantage in this series. There you go. Crazy to think about that. Now, the Eastern Conference Series finals gets underway tonight. We talked, of course, with our friend Mike Maniscalco yesterday, the play-by-play man for the Carolina Hurricanes, as they complete a record 11-day layoff, the longest ever in NHL playoff history. But he thinks they'll be ready to go tonight. It's game one against Montreal, and that game there in Raleigh. On the gridiron, how about this, college football fans? LSU has finalized a deal to add Ed Orgeron to its football staff. They're making this announcement last night. Now, you remember, Orgeron was the head coach at LSU and led them to a national title in 2019. He and Lane Kiffin are longtime friends, and they've worked together at USC and Tennessee. In fact, they last were together at USC back in 2013. Orgeron's role will officially be special assistant to recruiting and defense for the Tigers. He crafted a reputation as one of the country's top recruiters and defensive line coaches during his time in the sport. Recent changes in NCAA recruiting rules will allow Orgeron to go out on the road to recruit for the Tigers, selling two things that he knows immediately very, very well and very intimately: LSU and Kiffin. By the way, if you are keeping track of the calendar, it is now officially 100 days until week 0 in college football and the season starts. 100 days. That's all. So start loading up the pantry with chips and snacks and get ready for some football. Hard to believe it is already right there. It's been such a crazy offseason already. Let's see what comes up here in August. That you're ready for camp. Got to get this story in. You know, it's July 4th is also quickly upon us, right? Just a few weeks away from that. And that means the annual hot dog eating contest. And of course, if you talk about hot dog eating and contests, that equals Joey Chestnut. He's the reigning champion. And yes, 17-time winner of the Nathan's famous international hot dog eating contest. And they do this every year on July 4th. It's a spectacle. Well, he's on probation after pleading guilty to a misdemeanor battery charge. He was accused of slapping a man in the face in an Indiana bar. He entered a guilty plea on April 20th and sentenced to 100 days of probation there. Now, but he's still going to compete. Even though he's on probation, the judge has permitted him to travel outside the state to defend his title and the signature mustard belt. It takes place on Coney Island every year. His attorney told the Associated Press, look, this is just a misunderstanding. And they understood that he wanted to accept his responsibility for his actions. And so now here you go. So Chestnut said he was drunk. That's what he told police. Did not remember the altercation. And everything was taken out of context. So there you have it. Maybe the guy threatened him. I don't know. That burgers are better than hot dogs. I don't know what the reasoning is. But anyway, fear you not if you are worried that some court case of him assaulting a guy in a bar was going to keep him from eating hot dogs, because it's not. Joey Chestnut going for an 18th Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Championship on Coney Island on the 4th of July. And all is well with the world, as you know it. Okay, it's the Sports IQ. We've got much more to come and a crazy moment of awe at the end of the show as well. That's coming up on the way. Stay with us.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Producer Tony is with our next guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And let's dive into a little bit of NFL. A lot of OTAs going on around the country. You know, we saw earlier this week a former Packer finally decided he is going to play this season, and the Steelers rejoiced and they have him. And he says it's going to be for one more year. We'll see. But let's dive into and talk about what is happening with Green Bay instead of what is happening with ex-Green Bay players. Max Dible is a friend of the show. He's been on a few times before. He's with Heavy.com and is an NFL writer, focuses partially on the Packers. Max, good to see you again. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the offseason there in Green Bay. You know, obviously the most pressing issue for the Packers is when do they get Micah Parsons back this season? I don't think it's going to be from opening day from what I'm reading, but what is going on with Micah and his recovery from that ACL tear?
Well, he talked about it recently in an exclusive interview, saying that he didn't want to put a timeline on it because he was just learned how to walk again, is how he put it. Saying he needed to learn how to run again, and mentioned that he thought he was tracking toward an early season return, but you can't really predict how these things are going to go. And then there was a recent report from Adam Schefter of ESPN, who suggested the physically unable to perform list for the start of the season for Parsons, suggested that was probably the likelihood that Green Bay would probably make that move. Doing so would mean that he's sidelined for at least 4 games. So that would be my guess. And they do that so that they can keep an extra roster spot open, which they're going to need to add a lot of players to a lot of different key areas of the team. So yeah, that probably means I would think that they would say, late September, early October is when he could come back. If he's going to miss at least 2 or 3 games, let's put him on the PUP list. I mean, obviously a guy like Parsons, you want him back as soon as possible because he's a really, really, really important player for this team. Probably the most important, I would say, outside of Jordan Love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the defense after he left last season, they were kind of a shell of what they were up to that point. Didn't win many games after he left. They still have a number of holes left on that defense, holes as far as pass rusher, holes on the interior defensive line, holes in the secondary. Are they just hoping people step up and take some of these jobs? Or do you think that front office is still kind of looking around to see if there's any other pieces they can add before training camp actually starts?
I think they're going to add. I think they have to add an edge rusher, even if Parsons was going to be back week 1. Mina Kimes put it this way. She said that there probably isn't a more load-bearing player in the NFL than Micah Parsons. I mean, Lucas Van Ness, who has 8.5 sacks in his 3 years, is now the lead edge rusher, and he's not really ever been that successful, coming off the edge. He's been good on the inside. Last year when Parsons and Gary were playing on the outside, pass rushing downs, they rotated Van Ness on the inside. He was playing a little bit better there. So right now they're going to ask him for the first month to be their primary edge rusher. That's not going to be good enough. So there's a handful of guys. I've written about it several times. I've heard other people write about it. I mean, Joey Bosa could make sense. Cameron Jordan could make sense. Jadeveon Clowney could make sense. Von Miller could make sense. Jonathan Gannon is coming in. It's going to be a new defense. It'll still be a 3-4. So I would assume one of those guys is coming. And you're also to the place now where, general manager Brian Gutekunst, he wasn't going to add a guy before, a certain timeline on the calendar when it would have affected compensatory picks. Green Bay is in line with everybody they lost in free agency, Malik Willis being at the top of that list. They were projected a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to get 4 extra draft picks next year in 2027, wow. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th rounder. That would be huge because the 2027 draft, A lot of the buzz is that it's going to be one of the better drafts in recent memory. That's across every position. That's depth. So they didn't want to mess with that. But now that they can add players and it won't impact that formula, I would expect them to spend a lot of these guys too. Like Cam Jordan had 10.5 sacks last year, and he made $6 million. Yeah, he's 38 years old, but he had the best season in 5 years. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler. Why not spend $5 or $6 million when you got this glaring hole? They added Javon Hargrave to the defensive line as a D tackle. I don't know what you can expect from him. I think you can expect league average play. Devontae Wyatt is coming back healthy. So I do think that they're going to try to rely on, some of the guys they have in-house. That they're going to need Van Ness to play better. They're going to need Wyatt to be healthy. They're going to need Hargrave to hit to at least some degree. But you got to get more pass rush. Even when Micah Parsons is back, they need another guy.
Yeah, and the secondary had some issues last year, even with Parsons playing and causing havoc and making quarterbacks try to think a little faster and move a little faster. There's been talk of Valentine possibly being on his last days in Green Bay when it comes down to cut gay. The secondary still seems like it needs some work as well. If you're not going to be able to put up that pass rush and get to the quarterback as quickly, you're going to need some guys who can cover more than 3 seconds.
Yeah, and that's the problem is in the cornerback room. Their safeties, I like the safety tandem of Williams and McKinney. I think that's one of the better safety groups in at least in the starting lineup in the NFC. The cornerback room is really a big question mark, and that's why they used their first draft pick, which was a second rounder. They sent the first rounder out the door this year and next for Parsons, but they got Brandon Cisse, I believe that's how you say his last name, South Carolina cornerback, really athletic guy, not as polished maybe as you might like, but he's got a chance to start on the outside. Kayshawn Nixon, probably a better option than Valentine. So really, Valentine, it's going to come down to, I think the Packers drafted Damani Jackson, I believe out of Alabama in the 6th round. They added St. Juste in free agency. So Valentine could lose his job depending on how well those guys play. I do think Valentine probably doesn't start the season as a starter on the outside. We'll see. I don't know. I just putting him in the cut candidate conversation. I just feel like Green Bay's in such a difficult position in the cornerback room. I wouldn't want to, even if they're all middling or slightly below average players. I don't think you want to be sending any talent out the door right now, because it's just not safe, and you can't assume health in the NFL. You just can't ever assume it. And so I don't know if he'll get cut. I think there's a chance. I mean, if Damani Jackson shows out, if he ends up the 5th or 6th cornerback on the roster, Valentine, then maybe he's gone. But that is going to be, Parsons comes back, and no matter who they add just player X, who's a 13, 15-year veteran, Van Ness, Parsons, they'll make that work. The cornerback position is the weakest spot on the defense. It's the weakest spot on the team. That's where the Packers can fall apart this year.
Yeah, in a pass happy league, it's kind of tough to have cornerbacks you really can't depend on, which obviously the Packers are kind of guessing at this point. And like you said, you don't want to let talent go out the door because, it'd be just Green Bay's luck that Valentine would sign somewhere else and become an all-pro, right?
Right. He's also he's played 49 games in 3 years as a 7th round pick. He started 30 games. I mean, that speaks to how poorly the front office has actually gone about adding to the position. But, there's a guy in his mid-20s with 30 starts. Those guys don't just grow on trees in the NFL. So, even if he's not great, even if he's had some embarrassing moments on film, that's not a guy you want to just let walk unless you're 100% sure you've got 4 or 5 players who are better than him on the roster.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the other side of the ball. And, the Green Bay offense has been efficient the last few years. It's been better when, you have certain players on the field, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, they have been the best targets, most favorable targets for Jordan Love. The problem is keeping the two of them on the field has been next to impossible for more than a couple games in a row. But this year they lost Romeo Dobbs, they lost Dontavian Wicks to free agency because, look, at some point everybody has to cut somebody because it's the only way to get under the cap. And obviously the Packers felt like they had some extra wealth in that wide receiver room. What I'm concerned about as a Packer fan, Max, is what happens if one or both of them go down this season? Is there going to be anybody to man that position that Jordan Love can count on?
Well, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, that they traded Wicks just because they knew Dobbs was going to leave. He wasn't coming back. They weren't going to be able to pay him. I think he got $68 million or something from New England, which actually it's not as shocking maybe as some people on the outside looking in might think, given his his statistics. He's a pretty good wide receiver. They knew he was going to leave. They trade Wicks anyway. I think they're clearing a path for Golden, their first round pick in 2025 to be their primary target, at least in the wide receiver room. One thing maybe that's going a little bit overlooked there too, they paid Jaden Reed, who got hurt last year, but when he's been healthy, he's been good. So, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson as a top three wide receiver trio, I think that's pretty solid. Golden hasn't proven himself. Like you said, Watson hasn't been able to stay on the field. Reed has been a really versatile weapon, but he had injury issues last year. So there is some question there, but one thing that might be a little overlooked is Tucker Kraft is going to be back after tearing his ACL halfway through last season, and he was tracking, I wouldn't even say quietly, he was on a Pro Bowl track, and I think that there's an argument to be made his ceiling is a top 5 tight end in the league. So they really, and Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, they really leaned on him, they focused on him, they worked a lot of the offense through him. So I don't think there's a shortage of high-end talent in terms of the targets for Jordan Love. It's just going to be, like you said, how healthy can they remain? I don't see them needing to add a wide receiver at this point. There are some good ones still in free agency, but they're probably a little more expensive than Green Bay would want. I don't think they would want to spend money on, $25 million on 2 years of Stephon Diggs or, and you could talk about Brandon Ayuk. He could be a guy you could bring in maybe on like a 1 year, $12 million deal. But San Francisco refuses to accept the fact that nobody is going to trade for this guy. So he's still on. They're not going to trade for his contract. He hasn't played in a year and a half.
Right.
But John Lynch is holding on, maybe hoping something goes wrong and he can get something back for this guy who was an All-Pro a few years ago. That would be the kind of guy, if they were going to add, somebody they could bring in on like a 1 year prove it deal for 10 or 12 million.
Yeah.
I still think that's more money than they want to spend, and they just don't need it right now. They're just going to hope that their guys can stay healthy.
Speaking of health and guys not being on the field, Marshawn Lloyd, we've been waiting for a couple years. Yes, they've had Josh Jacobs, so they haven't really needed him. Would be nice to have a solid backup that can come in and spell Josh from time to time. Are we going to see Marshawn Lloyd actually on the field on a regular basis this season?
Well, it sounds like he's healthy, but he's played one game in 2 years. He's a 3rd round pick. I mean, at this point, and maybe it's not fair to call him a sunk cost. These things happen. It's the NFL where you can be injured 2 years in a row. Real bad omen to start your career that way, though. And it's just one of those things. I don't think you can bet on it. Like you can look at a guy like Tucker Kraft who got injured once and say, okay, he can come back. We can count on him to be healthy, maybe, and just hope that we don't get unlucky. But 2 years to start your career, I don't know. I'm not putting any faith is the wrong word. it's not something that I'm expecting. I'm not expecting Lloyd to be somebody that contributes to this team ever. If he gets hurt again, I think at that point you just, it's pretty much over. But that said, there really isn't a clear number 2 running back behind Jacobs, who also dealt with some injury issues last year, who's getting up there, not necessarily in years, but in terms of NFL years. I think he's in his late 20s. He's played eight seasons, something like that. And Emmanuel Wilson was the number 2 guy. He carried the ball 125 times. He rushed for 500 yards. He's with the Seahawks now. So I believe it's going to be Chris Brooks, who is an undrafted free agent, and then it's going to be Marshawn Lloyd. I think that those will probably be the 2 guys fighting for RB2 snaps. I mean, you're gonna use your RB2. You're gonna use your second running back in the offense. So we may see him. I was excited about him coming out. I thought he was drafted to be Josh Jacobs' permanent replacement, and I assumed they would probably try to transition to him. Like, this would have been the offseason to do it halfway through Jacobs' $48 million deal. I can't obviously rely on that now, but yeah, I think we'll see him. What we're going to see, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, who knows? He hasn't really played football in 2 years.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to see what we actually come up with Marshawn. Hopefully he gets on the field. Max, thank you so much for taking some time. Max Dible, he is Packers beat writer on heavy.com. Check him out. If you're a Packers fan, get some knowledge, get ready for the season. It's going to be here before we know it. OTA's going on. Camp starts in about 8 weeks. So we are right on the verge of NFL season being back. Max, thanks so much. Enjoy your holiday weekend, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Great to talk to you.
Appreciate Max joining us. We're going to take a quick time out here on the Sports IQ, but we'll be back with more right after this.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
What's the best way to get rid of a timeshare that you don't want? Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline. We're a group of attorneys that help customers legally exit their timeshares. It's an easy process. We guarantee results or you pay nothing. Exit your timeshare today. Call now.
800-715-6093. 800-715-6093. That's 800-715-6093.
Let's get back to the conversation now, college football. Producer Tony, we've been talking now for a couple of days and wanted to kind of spend a minute or two on this. This talk again of expanding the college football playoff. It appears that it's going to happen. It does appear. Well, I mean, everyone's on board, I guess, except the SEC, and that's another conversation. But it's something you picked up that was interesting in terms of basically, the league's trying to say, hey, if you don't play our way, we're just going to pack up and take our ball and go home. You and I both agree that's not a good idea.
No, I mean, you've got some proponents, you got some folks in the Big Ten talking about maybe we'll set a commission and govern ourselves. Well, how do they govern themselves and then compete against the SEC and the Big 12 or the ACC? If the rules aren't on an equal plane, how can the playing field be on an equal plane? Right. Maybe the Big Ten is trying to take the high ground. I get that. I don't fault them for that at all, but there needs to be something where they all come together and try to work on what's best for college football for everybody. not just the Big Ten, not just the SEC. Look, we've seen why the SEC doesn't want to expand. The SEC is against this expansion. They think it'll water down. It'll, leave too many teams other than SEC teams in these playoffs, and they'll have to play other games. They don't want to give up the conference championship game. I know there's money involved, and where money is, people tend not to want to give up money. But and Larry, you and I have talked. I'm not in favor of the 24 team. I think that's too many.
Yeah, I do too.
I can go as far as 16. Once you get past 16, I just don't think that you've earned the right to be in the running for a national championship based on what you did in the regular season. And some proponents have said, well, even if it goes to 24, there's over 100 teams. There's less percentage of teams in the playoffs than in the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, but the NFL isn't playing against other divisions. The NFL doesn't go out and schedule college teams the way certain conferences go and schedule FCS teams.
Right.
To play in the regular season. So there's a whole lot of differences that you can look at there, but the college regular season is important because it has meaning. It's always had meaning. Each game means something. If you miss a game on a Sunday in the NFL, well, we were 10-1 going in. I missed that game. Yeah, now we're 11-1. Don't care. Big deal. We're going to make the playoffs. We've already clinched our spot in the playoffs. But everything has meaning in college football, and I think it needs to stay that way.
Yeah, I think 24 is too much. I understand those who are in favor of it. I understand why. I'm with you. I think you can do the same things with 16 teams. What I would prefer in the model, again, that we've talked about and will be continue to talk about back in the late 2000s. I've mentioned that I put together a very similar plan to what Dan Wetzel had at the time. We sat down and we were waiting on Michael Vick to be sentenced in Richmond, Virginia, and realized we had the same ideas. 16 teams. In my world, you start a week earlier. Like conference championship weekend is Thanksgiving weekend. And then after that, Selection Sunday on that Sunday, and you're off and running. You're on campus sites that following week. Number one seed Indiana should have had one home game, right? No buys. You go right into it. You play the round of 16, take off your time for exams, and you come back with the quarterfinals, semifinals, and that. And you play it during the holidays where, you should not be going into late January where you still have football players. That's where you get into the issue with the transfer portal is that the season is so long. You've got guys, now, the season just ended for the two teams in the championship game. Now the portal begins. Well, you can't open the portal after the spring semester begins.
Right.
Like, come on. So, but I'm with you. You got it. Look, there is so much money to be made that they are making in this. And I'm with you. They've got to find a way to come together. And one going off and taking the ball and doing their own thing, that's not going to work either. It's not going to work.
No, it's not going to be able. You're not going to be able to, like I said, have a level playing field. Look, if it takes locking all the guys up from these conferences in a room for a week and saying, look, nobody comes out until there's a deal to figure all this out. Yeah. And make it as level a playing field as you can for everybody, so that everybody involved in Division I football has a chance to get to the college football playoff. And until you guys can do that, nobody's leaving here. There's going to be no TV. There's going to be no pizza. You're on a bread and water diet until we figure this out. And that's it, and we're going to leave on, reruns of old Dick Cavett shows. And that's all you get to see for the duration of this, or whatever. All you get to watch is Gilligan's Island for, from now until you figure this out. But, come to some sort of agreement and make it work for everybody as best you can. Because look, we're living in our entire world is a world of have and have nots. And it's no different in college football. You've got your haves and your have nots, and there's some teams that can't compete and other teams that can over compete. And somewhere there's got to be a middle ground. The good thing about the NFL is everybody goes into opening day thinking they got a shot. Even Jets fans will think they've got a shot this year. They may be crazy, but they think that way.
Yeah, exactly. Allow them that month of, euphoria just for a month. So
right.
Couldn't agree with you more. Well, this won't be the last time we'll talk about this. We'll have much more to come, I'm sure. as they maneuver through this new world of college athletics. All right, our moment of awe is up next. Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, Sports IQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQ TRADE-IN. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ trade-in for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter. Time now for today's moment of awe, and happy birthday to the bicycle. It was on this date, May 21st, 1819, when the bicycle made its American debut in New York City. Now, these were a little different than the bikes in your garage. No chains or pedals. They were known as swift walkers, and the only propeller that you had, well, they were your feet. The pedals and chains came in later models. Decades later, in fact, the Raleigh Bike Company, the bike was so popular, they were producing about 2 million bikes a year. This is around the turn of the century. So happy birthday to the bicycle. You're looking good at age 207. And that's our moment of awe. Thanks so much for our guests stopping by, and thanks to you as well. Make this a fantastic Thursday. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.